sex criminal introduces Susie and John, seemingly two normal people who just happen to stop time when they have sex. Throughout the volume, Susie and John attempt to rob a bank in order to save Susie's library, which is in danger of foreclosing. Susie, the main protagonist, learns when she was younger she could freeze time whilst having an orgasm. She attempts to figure out how she is able to stop time, eventually meeting John, who can also stop time. As the two begin to pursue a relationship, John proposes that they should rob a bank in order to save Susie's library. However, a mysterious organization called the Sex Police track them down. Hey YouTube, this is RobTheNut1 here, and I'm here to review Sex Criminals Volume 1. And unlike a lot of the stuff that I got from Comic-Con, this book is very unique, and I think a lot of unique ideas are coming out of the independent stuff. And I was very, very impressed with this volume in particular, because unlike your Marvel and your DC, I think the independent stuff gives a lot of people room to explore stories and ideas that otherwise the Marvel and the DC businesses don't like to. And because sex is such a taboo, has such a taboo mindset, in our society, I sort of like the fact that Sex Criminals finally allows people to talk about sex in a very fun and non-serious way. And I really, really liked that. This book is just such a really, really fun book. And like, everything from the characters to the story just makes the subject of sex really, really fun. I would actually say Sex Criminals Volume 1 could be given to a 13-year-old. Because I think at that age, sex is something they're just starting to learn. And I think, and I would actually say that this book is lays the perfect groundwork for not only sex, but also adult relationships moving forward. And I think this book is a perfect example of maybe a book that teachers should start. I mean, not that comics will ever be a medium that teachers will use, but if it ever were, Sex Criminals is the perfect book to give to a young audience. I think this speaks to how well the book is written. That actually, I think you can learn a lot about sex in this book than you can even with a teacher, talking about the subject. I really, really think it's not just sex. It's not just reproduction. It's not just sexual education. It's so much more than that. And this book really, really tries to tell us that yes, there is this sex bit, but there is also the relationships that come about with that as well. And what I love about this book is that it shows both the male perspective and the female perspective of two different characters. We get the female who's very, very confused about sex, and I think that speaks to a lot of teenagers these days who are very confused about sex and their who they like, who they don't like, what sexual orientation they are. And what I love about this story, as I was saying, is that both of these people have different outlooks on sex. You have someone who is very, very confused about sex and tries to find out what sex is. And then you have another character sort of thinking sex is more of a chore. He's not really sure what sex is and why people do it. And I just think this book teaches you a lot about the sex and relationships of people. And to give an example, one of Susie's friends in the story had a very, very bad relationship. And it's sort of paralleling what Susie might be in now and the sort of the damaging effects it can do to a person. And I really, really liked that about the story, that you had that parallel. You have the relationships also being a key factor in making Susie and John's relationship work in the story. Another great bit was Susie's Deadpool moments. Susie talks to the audience members quite a lot in this story. She is, of course, the narrator, but she'll say such funny things like she'll quote songs and stuff, which I just think adds to why this book is so great, because it's not just your generic story. It's talking to us as an audience. I'm quite moving forward into Volume 2. I'm quite interested to know who the Sex Police are. And what the Sex Police are in this story is they're a group of people who who are actually able to move through time. They have the same abilities that Susie and John have. And they ensure that people don't abuse their power. I'm sort of quite curious as to what will happen in Volume 2, whether the Sex Police will be explored more. Because I definitely think, now that the fun stuff is out the way, I think Volume 2 might be a bit more story-driven. And I'm also thinking that because of the parallel that I mentioned between between Susie and her friend, I'm also curious if John will wind up going the same way. Because it's mentioned towards the end of the book that he has a tendency to derail sometimes. And I'm quite curious as to how that will affect Susie and John's relationship moving forward. I give this book a 5 out of 5. Brilliant book. Go get it. Subscribe if you liked this quick review, which I'm really happy about because it means the editing is going to be less. Yay! Which means I can get it to you guys sooner rather than later, as I have been doing this year. So anyway, I'm Robin One here, and I shall see you all later for another comic book review. Bye.